Good evening, and you're very welcome back to episode 5 of season 3 of the Women's National League podcast here on finalwhistle.ie. I'm Breifne and Aaron, and of course, joining me once again for a chat is Aaron Clark. We're going to be talking all things League of Ireland Women's Premier Division over the next hour or so. And of course, we'll also be joined by Billy Clery in just a couple of moments. Former Galway Women's FC manager, now Supremo at Galway. The University of Galway, I should say. It's their brand new moniker this year, but brand new look as well to the women's soccer team there. Intervarsity champions as of yesterday. We'll be chatting to Billy about that success, and I suppose maybe about the secrets, what have gone into making that happen as well. But first and foremost, Aaron, how have you been for the last week?
Been good. Really enjoyed the football last weekend. I think anybody who watched TJ Carr got a nice thrilling game of football. Yeah, it's been good watching the Irish team last night. Obviously, that's why we didn't go as our normal Wednesday night, just because the fact that Ireland were playing Latvia. So, but yeah, no, good. Looking forward to this. Billy's always been somebody who I've had a lot of time for, a lot of admiration for. So I'm looking forward to picking his brain and learning more about the whole college structures and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, of course, well known to myself in the last decade or so, or 15 years or so with the colleges scene as well. So nice to kind of drop back into that world. First and foremost, let's talk about the Tolka Rovers game, because I know you were at it at the weekend. Did it live up to its expectations?
To be honest with you, it probably blew them out of the water for me. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what we get from Rovers, didn't know what we get from Shells. I sort of said last week that I wasn't sure if it was Shells are very good or the two teams they played weren't great. But it was a superb game of football, and for the fact it was only 1-1 was even mad. Jamie Thompson was superb from a Shamrock Rovers point of view. Anya O'Gorman took her goal very well. Alex Kavanagh, unbelievable in the middle of the park for Shells. Same with Rachel Graham, and it was just one of them games that we learned so much from both teams, what they're about, what their capabilities are. I think we've learned a little bit about where Rovers' potential is, because at times they show glimpses of absolute superbness, and it's something that I think we will definitely be keeping a close eye on. But it felt like, for me, it was the first time in a long time, it felt like a real League of Ireland derby. I haven't really got that before in a women's game, and it really felt like that. The crunching tackles were going in, the crowds on both sides were getting involved with it, and it's just one of them that was a truly enjoyable spectacle for the 676 fans who were in Tolka Park.
Yeah, we might have a chat a bit more about that. And, of course, all the other games from the weekend later in the show. But first of all, let's bring in our guest for tonight. That is, of course, former Galway Women's FC manager, Billy Clery. Billy, first of all, as the boss of the University of Galway, I'm going to keep getting that wrong forever, but the University of Galway, Intervarsity champions yesterday, 2-0 victors over my old alma mater, DCU. You got to be happy with how the season has finished up for you on the Intervarsity stage.
Yeah, and thanks a million for having me on, lads. Yeah, it was great, obviously, to have a winning end to the season, you know, and there was a lot of hard work put in by the girls over the course of the year. So, yeah, delighted to obviously have a successful outcome to the season, and the girls are delighted, you know, have a great bunch of girls. So it's onwards and upwards, hopefully, for the university.
Talk to us about that bunch of girls, because you look at it, it's star-studded. So many ex-Irish underage internationals as well playing for Billy. It must be just a joy when you rock up the train and see so many top-class players.
Yeah, but like that, Arden, like, to be honest, we don't actually train all that often, you know. But when we do get together, everyone is there, because look, there's a balance when you're doing third level football, you know, and how many training sessions. They're all training with the Women's National League clubs, and in my case, obviously, Tommy down at Lone, Phil in Galway here, you know, the guys are very understanding, and you're communicating with them and letting them know what's happening, and when the fixtures are on, and like the girls are, majority of them are on scholarship down here, so that they have obligations to play for the university and represent the university. But yeah, look, and it's not only the girls playing Women's National League, Arden, everyone might say them. Look, we've a couple of girls from Donegal there, like Molly Page, Ashley Irwin, like girls that sort of came under the radar in the underage with Donegal, and they're down in Galway in college here, and they have huge potential, but I suppose they just haven't been exposed to, or it wasn't there in Donegal at the time for them to play at a higher level. But they're more than capable, I suppose, and if they're in the environment, it'll help them develop and improve them.
course, we, without putting specific names on it, it is very much a League of Ireland team, the kind of the cream of the crop from a couple of clubs. At Lone, you mentioned there, have a few teams in there, Galway as well. Emily Corbett's moved mid-season, from your point of view, to Wexford. Let's talk about that one for a minute, because obviously she was in Athlone, obviously Laois native, but now playing at Wexford. Does that mean you see less of her when she's travelling to training there, or how do you manage that one?
No, look, Emily hasn't been with it. Emily is actually deferred college for the year. She'd, I think she just made a career choice, I suppose. Something I don't think she was getting on well with the course, and just and that happens with a number of people through university. I've seen it back through the years where you start a course, it's not what you thought it was, and you just defer the year and reevaluate where you're at with your university. But Emily's was a great girl. She was with us in semester one. Great time for her, and wish her the very best. What she's going forward.
We spoke to Abigail Renane, it was earlier this season or said the end of last, and she was talking about college stuff with yourself, and talk to us a little bit more about that sort of, the balance, the striking the balance, because on one side, you have players who are on scholarships who are there to play for the college, but on the other side, you see them playing week in, week out in the National League. Talk about how you strike that balance between how often you train or how much they play.
Yeah, well, how much they play, I suppose, is based, Aaron, on the fixture list that you have with the university, and it's. I'm lucky enough. All the girls want to play because they're having a good time. They enjoy it. I think the overall feeling I get from all the group of players I have is they have great pride in playing with the university and playing with each other. So if they can't make training, if there's a problem, if they have an assignment or an assessment, it's no problem. You can't make training, you can't make training. That's fine. Striking that balance is huge. And like I was saying to you off here, earlier, sport is something you do. It's not who you are. So these girls, unfortunately, are they going to be able in a position to make a full-time livelihood or living out of, playing soccer? Please God, a few will, but not all. So their education is the importance first, sport is secondary, so that's the way I look on it.
Speaking of the kind of the enjoying playing with each other, obviously these girls might play with each other on a Wednesday, but they could be facing off against each other on a Saturday. What's the banter like around those fixtures, particularly the number of girls who've played for both or other of the clubs, Galway and Athlone specifically, I'm talking about?
Yeah, look, we'll find out in a couple of weeks because they're playing midweek on a Wednesday, so it'll be interesting to see. But yeah, look, I think because it is predominantly Galway and Athlone, look, there's great banter between them all. But I think first and foremost, they're all friends on and off the park, and I think that sort of stems back from a lot of them with involved with the underage international teams. They all know each other, so I don't think it's the massive rivalry until it's match day and they show up against each other and they're one or two of them are trying to wind each other up because they know each other's personalities and traits. Well, the girls know who I'm talking about. But
I think we do too.
Yeah, but it's a unique area, and it goes back to sort of years ago where it was my first job. Our coaching job was involved actually at university level with the men's soccer club in the university, and that's what it's all about. The camaraderie, the friendships they build, the networking they do between each other. They're making lifelong friends and opportunities. But it's, I don't think there's that fierce rivalry between each other until it's match day. And they're all competitive. They're all elite athletes, and they all want to win. Because that's when you're at that level. They're winners and they want to win.
I don't think we'll be seeing any Katie McCabe and Danielle van der Donks as we did when Ireland played Holland in Tallaght Stadium. I don't think we'll see any of them from the players. But in terms of the overall, Billy, with the girls, most of them will probably travel. You'll see some of them travel to away. To say even that game next Wednesday, if they're in college, they may even travel together to that game because of the fact of the friendships. And that's the sort of thing that I think the Women's League has a bit of uniqueness that. yes, you'll go out on the pitch, you might want to take each other out, but when you leave the pitch, it's a completely different environment than maybe a lot of people are used to. There's a lot of the social aspect to it as well. Do you think over the years we'll see that start to maybe come out in the league a little bit more as the professionalism continues to rise?
Look, there's no doubt that I think it will, but at the moment, I know we all throw the word professionalism around, and it's a professional league and there's professional status, but in reality, it's not really. It's semi-professional. It's players getting their expenses. If you were to turn around to anyone in the FAI, or how many professional players are playing in the League of Ireland, I doubt you could actually count them on one hand. So this whole conversation about the league is professional, it's absolute rubbish in my view. The players are getting their expenses. They might be getting a few quid here and there, but that's about it. So it's a case. There's a lot of professionalism going around the league with the likes of the work you guys are doing with social media and making the game more reachable to the public and keeping the public updated with the players and the off-field stuff, the interviews you've done with them, but it needs to go to the next level. The players need to be properly remunerated, but when you go down that road as well, the commitment levels of a lot of the players has to go up. That's the big thing that I find, if I'm a coach or a manager and there's a player getting X amount per week, and if they're giving me a BS excuse why they're missing training, then you have issues. So we all want the game to improve. We all want it to go to the next level. We all want it to be more professional. But with that comes, accountability, commitment levels really have to go through the roof if you want to be at the upper tier of the table.
In terms, let's say hypothetically, the FAI come to you, Eileen Gleeson comes down in her new role as Director of Women's Football and seeks your advice. What steps do you think the FAI can make based on this kind of relatively short notice move to professionalism over the winter? Where do you think the FAI needs to go? Because it's so easy to just say put money in, but we've all seen money go into various projects in the League of Ireland and Irish football and nothing to show for it 5 or 10 years later. Where do you see the best value for money or the best value for investment or the key areas that we can actually look at as a collective to try and grow the game to where you're talking about?
Well, I've actually invited Vera Powell and the previous manager, Colin Bell, down to the University of Galway to meet with the Director of Sport in the college about a programme or a vision that we have trying to make like elite hubs around the country within university settings. Because, as you said, the vast majority of our starting 11 are all Irish under-19 or ex-under-19 internationals. You look through the University of Maynooth as well, same thing. Down in Cork, same thing. Limerick, same thing. So we have a situation now where organically the quality of player going into the university setting is growing and is getting better. We have a case where we've players been dragged halfway around the country up to home-based training sessions on a Wednesday night, being asked to leave university, school, for what, I don't know. You could easily, as I say, you go back into it, like the vast majority of the players now that are last year's group of under-19 internationals, there are a handful of them that are up at the home-based training sessions. They're forgotten girls. They were highly motivated from the age of 16, 17, 19, because they were involved in Irish international squads. Between the years of 19 and 23, there's very few of them that are going to be able to step up and make that step up to senior international players because of just pure maturation. They're not fully physically developed. They haven't had been exposed to the amount of games to give them the experience to be in different match situations or scenarios to be able to do that. And it just so happens that age cohort, 19 to 23, is the university years. So I would say for developing that group of players, the 19 to 23, an Irish university international team is a must. But if it was a case of you have your home-based squad and you pick an Irish university international squad to play against them, every month or every quarter, it would be mutually beneficial, because there's a high standard of player within the university. Like you look at, like, obviously Aaron McLaughlin, Becky Watkins, Carol McManus, all in Maynooth. You go back to, like you mentioned, Dervla Byrne, Jenna Slattery, Gillian Keegan, all Limerick, ourselves. You know, we're missing a trick here, and it's only going to get, the quality is only going to improve in all the universities in the next year and 2 years, because of the introduction of the under 17 and under 19 League of Ireland. So now every year, every university in Ireland are recruiting a far better quality of player to come into the university system.
But there always has been, sorry to cut across you, Billy, but there always has been, I've been to myself, World University Games competitions. Now, football no longer part of that program. It's been moved to its own standalone World Cup status. It's taking place in China in October, November this year. Ireland have always participated in that with reasonable success, definitely on the women's side, more so than the men over the years. Fourth twice, I think, definitely in 07 under Noel King, and I believe they finished fourth in more recent years as well. I don't know off the top of my head what year that was, but have Ireland got plans to put a team in that? Excuse my ignorance, I haven't quite kept up on it.
Yeah, they finished fourth in 2019, and they're within I think it was 7 minutes of getting a bronze medal at the World Student Games, which was an unbelievable. Actually, I think they defeated Korea and China and Brazil along the way. And again, as a coach and someone who was involved with Galway Women's FC at the time, we had actually 5 players involved in that squad. You know, so it was actually one of the, I've said it before, it was one of the highlights of my time involved in the Women's National League, the fact that we had 5 players, a Leitrim native, Alva Clancy being one of them 5, Breifne. So I've been involved in conversations where it's been said that is a possibility, and they're hoping to do that in the coming year. But again, that's coming from sources within the university circle. You know, this should be driven by the FAI. You know, this is something that they need to really take hold of. That you look at last year's Irish under-19 international team, I'd say at least 60%, 70% of them are in university now. Them girls should have an opportunity, or should be given the opportunity, to develop and grow.
Yeah,
better.
There is a long-standing political issue there. Just for listeners who might be listening to this, there is another entity, Student Sport Ireland, that officially looks after that team, and it does cross both jurisdictions, IFA, FA Ireland. It's always been one of those kind of sticking points. So hopefully we won't see an Irish team miss out. I'd expect there to be Irish representation at that level.
I have a couple of things on this, right? I called about 6 years ago. I called for at least an under 23s international team. Like, for me, I watch on with envy every World Cup window. Not every World Cup, every international window. When I look at the England squads being announced, most of the times they nearly announce a B squad to go play games. They nearly announce an under 23 squad to go and play games somewhere else. And you're just thinking, at the moment, we're just losing so many players off out of that pool of players who are just either playing different sports, doing something else, because they, as Billy said, a lot of the times the drive can be gone because they see, I'm not going to get into that international window, but there's no bridging between the 19s and the seniors. Whereas I think if we can't have a colleges under 23s, it has to be at least an Irish under 23s, and have them regular games with the home base, have the regular internationals, even if it's a home behind closed doors international, to give these players that bit of exposure, that bit of growth. But there's another thing for me on Billy's point about the hubs. The thing about the hubs is, if you have top class coaches in these hubs and you have maybe 4 or 5 hubs around the country, you don't necessarily need to drag these players to Dublin all the time for home-based training. You can have a home-based session in these hubs where you bring the players from the local clubs into one of these hubs, or even if you have it in, say, 2 or 3 hubs, if you want to narrow it down slightly. And then you can have top-class coaches there where you can actually allow the players to go and get better quality time. Like, if you look at a player from Cork coming up to Dublin on a Wednesday night for a home-based session, they're going to get caught in the traffic coming up to Dublin. They're going to get potentially caught in traffic leaving Cork. By the time they get home, it's probably midnight. And some of these players, I don't mean to sound bad, they may not have a chance of getting into a senior squad, but they're being dragged up. Whereas if we had something where we could develop, even if it's a regional colleges tournament as well, where a provincial thing as well, like back in and actually give the opportunity for these players to be showcased, because we've so much great talent in the country that your biggest fear is we're going to lose it. And like, I'm not 100% sure how much of an impact the World Cup is actually going to have on the National League going forward. That's a concern for me, because it should have a massive exposure, and I'm not convinced it will. Yes, there's a lot of things happening off the field, but on the field, there's a lot more that does need to be done.
Yeah, as someone who coached Leinster, sorry, Billy, we're having a conversation over here, but as someone who coached that Leinster colleges into provincial side for 10 years, from about 06 to 13, 14, it was 10 seasons in all. Some of the players that came through that, we had squads with just that, half of them have gone on to play professionally, and I think one game I remember we won, now it was a non-event in some respects, 17-0. We took off Louise Quinn, Stephanie Roach and Anya O'Gorman at half time, and that was only 6-0. And the team that came on, packed full of other players who've gone on to play international football and other codes. The likes of Hannah Tyrrell got a hat-trick in that game coming on at half time, so has gone on to play rugby for Ireland, Gaelic football for Dublin, and the players are there, but the structures need to be around it. Billy, sorry, we've kind of asked you a question and answered it ourselves. Let's maybe go back a bit to speak about Galway's success this year, and talk to us about how that actual success has come about. What were the building blocks that have been put in place over the last couple of seasons to allow you to generate that kind of a squad and to have that kind of talent available to you?
Oh, look, it's just happened organically, Breifne. To be honest, look, this is the core group of the players we have in the university are obviously Galway based, or they're from the west of Ireland region or the catchment area. So, like, we'd have the vast majority of the girls are Galway based on scholarship here. Then we obviously have Myrne Devaney, Leitrim, the west of Ireland. We've Lucy Jane, Grant Athlone area. Leah Brady, she's ex-Galway, but she's Cavan, and so a lot of the girls, due to their academic aspirations, I suppose, within the university, there's 4 different colleges. You have your College of Arts, your College of Business, your College of Science, your College of Medicine. So it's down to the girls' academic aspirations and what they want to do. And if any of them colleges are for you, if that's your choice of academic career, it's a good place to come, because first and foremost, we have the core group of a nucleus of 15, 16 really good players, and it's really important that you have a core group of quality players, because the standard is high automatically. So hopefully every year you're trying to recruit 2 or 3 more, because you're going to lose 2 or 3 every year. But like, back to your sort of question, how did it happen? It happened all on its own, really, and it goes back to the 17s league, the 19s league. We had a core group of players who were exposed to playing women's national league at an early age. The likes of your Therese Kenevi's, your Shauna Brennan's, they were 17 and they were starting every game. And they're 20 now, and they've got an awful lot more experience, an awful lot more growth. You have the same with your Chloe Singletons. And again, we had a number of players who came into first year, like you mentioned, Emily earlier on. We had an Emily, it just wasn't for her in Galway. She decided to take a different path. We also had the likes of Sive Doyle, who was here, and Sive done first year here, and she wanted to move on and do a different course, in Trinity. That was her career path, what she chose to do, and we would never try and discourage or push anyone away from what they want to do, because Aisling Meany the same way. First year here, she went off and explored different opportunities in America. So you're always going to have that turnover of player, but it's back to the student or the athlete or whatever. It's sport is something you do. It's not who you are. And I find we have now, because people are getting pigeonholed into being soccer players, and all of a sudden everyone in the country now is doing a sports course or a nutrition course or an athletic therapy course, or everything is sports related rather than doing what they really want to do. And I think a lot of it, for every player out there, they need to research, and time is your is your friend. You know, your career guidance teacher in your school is your friend, and go and find out what your passions are, what you're good at, what you're interested in, and then make your academic decisions based on that rather than your soccer.
Do you know what's funny? Just on that, Billy, you know what's funny? I actually done a sports course and I don't use it. Don't use it at all. I have an honours degree, don't use it. Completely different career path. And it was it was one of them that I wanted a degree. Whereas 100%, I'm with you 100%, because the thing is, sport can do you great, but it can also, on the other side, if it doesn't work out for you, it can be one of the most cruel things in the world. So that's why I think when we look at the college system at the moment, and I think the fact that the likes of Galway, the likes of UCC, and all, these sort of colleges, they try to push on what's best for you. They don't try to push on just it has to be sports, because I think that's important to a soccer player. Yes, you might make it abroad, you might not make it abroad, and you might have to fall back on your education. I think Amber Barrett is probably the prime example. Yeah. Went and done our masters in Trinity and DCU after finishing in Maynooth, and it's in teaching. She was doing teaching, so she's a career to fall back on if football doesn't go that way. Whereas I think if you're hell bent on going sports route, you need to be extremely careful and make sure you have a direct single route to where you want to go, because it's not as easy as people think.
Yeah, but
that brings me nicely. Sorry, Billy, we are running out of time. That brings me nicely to actually what Billy does offer down there as part of the soccer program, and a whole session. This session, I think, happened back in January, Billy, but I'm sure you'd be quite happy to chat to anybody who is interested, maybe a leaving cert student or a fifth year student who might have Galway on their mind, who might have a bit of football on their mind while they're studying down there. What's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Yeah, if they contact the Instagram page, the Twitter page, or anything like that, they can just get in touch with us, drop us a line, and be happy to talk to anyone who needs any information. You know, like, the only thing I'd say, again, lads, is everybody thinks of, scholarships, money, and it's not about money. It's about the support structures that each university can put in place, and we all can do more or less the same. You get your subsistence grant, your coaching, your monitoring, strength and conditioning, access to gyms, all that sort of stuff is there. But if it's a lot of people make their decisions on where we're going to do academically, and also in relation to, what facilities are there and available, and what clubs are within the catchment area of the university. Like in our case, it's Galway and Athlone, because Athlone is 45 minutes up the motorway, 40 minutes, so it's a great opportunity for people. But it's I wouldn't be picking any academic course, or I wouldn't be trying to sell any scholarship scheme to any student if the University of Galway doesn't have the course that's for them. It's something that it's academic first, it's sports second, and that's the model we try and use down here for the women's soccer program. So it's and when they come down here, it's a good environment, I think.
Thanks for joining us, Billy. Someone who was on the losing side in the dugout on an Intervarsities final. Congratulations on getting that little trophy back with you. Not a little trophy, it's a decent trophy. Back to Galway last night, and very good win over DCU yesterday, 2-0. The goals, of course, just to give them the credit, Myrna Devaney and Rose O'Flaherty got, or L Rose O'Flaherty? What she go? Ellie Rose or Ellie? I'm not quite sure. But listen, congratulations, and best of luck for recruitment over the next couple of months and into the 23-24 season.
Thanks, lads. Thanks for having me.
Cheers, Billy.
Billy Clery there. Aaron, it's great to see somebody come in with a plan and to actually allow a program to develop organically and in the right manner and properly supported and properly resourced in terms of having coaching staff who know what they're talking about at that level.
Oh, 100%. Well, I could listen to Billy Clery talk all day, because I actually think his ideas to burn. And the funny thing is, he mentioned about like coaching plans and stuff like that he want to bring in Galway. Like, I've spoken to him at times about what he wants to do and how he wants to grow the college scene. And I think for me, having people like that with so much National League experience, having played in the League of Ireland as well, in the men's side of things, come in and coach, and it's a great environment for them to come in. But I think we need to do more for our college system, and it shouldn't be seen as a just a secondary, push off to the side. Like, look how well UCD do in the men's compared to then they bring the players into the first division side, the Premier Division side. I love that. I think UCD adds so much to the League of Ireland, and I think from a college point of view, we could have so much more. There's no reason why we can't have a closer knit ties across the board, and I think it's something that hopefully we will see as the league continues to push on, because you can't just expect everything to be just throwing money in. There has to be other ideas and other things that are brought into it to actually help it grow. And I think Vera Powell wouldn't do amiss if she went to Galway and sat with Billy and the sports director in Galway just to have a listen to the plan, because I'm sure there's ideas the FAI could take away and help to implement.
Yeah, that would be an interesting proposition. Will we see it happening? Who knows? I think she might have other ideas on her hands over the next few months. In terms of the actual results from last weekend, now let's maybe rewind the clock a little bit and talk about those games. We might start in Galway. Bows, the first game of the weekend, Bows came down. There's been a lot of 1-0s in Galway's 3 games so far. 1-1, lost 2, all by the same scoreline. It's getting a bit like Arsenal at the moment. Sarah Rowe did get off the mark, though, just before half-time, scored the only goal of the game, and Bows took all 3 points back up the N6. Both to be happy enough with that, I'd imagine.
Yeah, but come on, I could Sarah Rowe really say she knew an awful lot about that. Just the hit offer from an Abigail Renan clearance. It was sort of one of them that it can go absolutely anywhere, and unfortunately for the goalkeeper, it spilled it into the net. Yeah, both to be happy. It's another win from its 2 wins out of 3. It's a bounce back off the loss to Shells, where it was probably the most comfortable Shells looked against them. So good 3 points for them, especially considering the week they'd had with the stuff that was happening in the game with Shell. So it's a good one just to move, park the bus, move behind, and walk away with 3 points. From a Galway point of view, as you say, not a lot of goals going in either end. Phil Trill, maybe he'd be happy in a sense that yes, the defence is quite good. It was just it was an innocuous clearance that cost them a goal, but other than that, they're defending quite well at the minute, and they're just not putting the ball in the net as much as you'd like.
In terms of the next fixture on my list, DLR Waves 3, Cork City 0, 2-0 up after less than 10 minutes. You kind of thought maybe the way those two teams have been set up over the last year or two that might have opened the floodgates. I suppose Cork will be quite happy from 2-0 down to maybe only have conceded one more in the rest of the 98 minutes.
It was a lovely strike. Joy Rolfe's goal was a superb strike for them from distance. But when you see 2-0 after 9 minutes, you start thinking, oh no, the floodgates are going to open here for Cork. And I think from their point of view, the fact that it didn't and it only finished 3-0, it's probably a bit of a positive, but they haven't really looked that impressive in their opening game so far. And they've no game this weekend now with the Wexford game being called off and being rescheduled. So they've now a bit of a wait until they play Treaty in the midweek games. So for them, it's probably a bit of an opportunity to maybe do a little bit of work. The college season is over, so Danny may have all his players there and available, where some might have been playing a bit of college football midweek. And I think from their point of view, it's been a really difficult start to the season from DLR Waves. A good way to bounce back after losing late on to Peamount the week previous, and it's a first home win for DLR with another big game coming up this week.
Yeah, speaking of big games, at Lone Town made the journey down to Treaty. You'd kind of think maybe they had one eye on the Intervarsities this week, but no, 8-0 the final score. I know we spoke to Alban last week, and he seemed relatively confident that they put up a performance. It's hard to see any positives in this for Treaty.
Absolutely, it's a really, really tough one to take, and unfortunately, fixtures don't get really much easier for them as well. So it's just going to be a case that they could unfortunately ship a lot of goals early on. Madison Gibson a hat-trick. I'm going to go on record. I'm going to go on record and say that I wouldn't be surprised if she's there or thereabouts for the Golden Boot this year, because I have a feeling she's going to score a bucket of goals this year. Look, a lot of different scores. Some young Eve Kennedy getting on the score sheet as well. From a Tommy Ewa point of view, it's a perfect response. 2 wins from 2 after the back of the opening day defeat, and you're rolling on and being like happy days. Move on to the next one, and it's one of them for Athlone that they look forward to travelling to DLR this weekend, because they're in high form since that 1-0 that 3-1 loss to Peamount. Yeah,
the final game of the weekend, and of course as well, the one I was at on Sunday or Saturday evening, complete clash with the rugby, which seems crazy. There was, like, to say there was a small crowd in the showgrounds would be to do small crowds a disservice. I think the official attendance came in somewhere just over 200. I think they counted every single person, including the guy taking the tickets, because it looked way less than that. And they've had really good crowds in the showgrounds in the early exchanges of the season. And it was a poor day weather-wise. It was a poor day football-wise. It was an even worse day attendance-wise.
274, they said the official attendance was.
I'd be surprised if it was half that. And that's been honest about it. We did a quick head count, and we joked when the PA guy asked for the official attendance, and the guy said he'd go and get it, and the PA guy, and I quote, asked him if he was going to do a head count himself one by one. It was not a big crowd there by any means of imagination, and everyone was just focused on the rugby. And that's
what's your opinion on that though, Breifne? Because I think we shoot ourselves in the foot to be
putting the fixture up against one of the biggest sporting highlights or sporting fixtures of the year in the country. Even if you have no interest in rugby or no interest in anything, and you're from either Sligo or Plymouth jurisdictions or families, you probably still had an ear on the rugby. I'm not going to lie, the rugby was on in the press box. I was the only working journalist at the game. And that speaks volumes. None of the local media represented. Ocean, technically, one of their lads was doing the commentary on thing, and
that should have been probably a 12 o'clock kickoff. Plymouth back up the road.
100%, and it would have had probably double or treble the numbers of people at the game. It was just unfortunate. I think it's no reflection on either club. It's just a poor reflection on the fixtures committee of the league. And I think even other teams have changed fixtures around to suit rugby fixtures or suit other things. I think at some stage in the last 2 weeks, when it was becoming more and more obvious that game was going to be so big for Ireland, England in the Aviva, a Grand Slam decider, there would have been literally no impact on anybody if they'd moved that to 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock in the day, and everybody would have been done and dusted, and everyone would have been happy, and they would have doubled the attendance. These clubs will rely on that money at the gate for attendances, more so in the women's league than the men even. And if you're going to say you're going to turn down 200 or 300 people who are paying a $5 or a $10 at the gate, that could be the players' expenses for the game, for the week. Mm-hmm. And we just have to think cleverer. We can't be putting ourselves up against men's matches or even big high-profile sporting events. It's absolute lunacy. I don't know whether one team or the other may have objected to that, because obviously they need everyone's buy-in, but it just made no sense. On the pitch, the first hour was absolutely atrocious to watch. There was barely an attempt of any kind of real quality. Sligo did threaten once or twice, had a couple of chances, half chances really. Neither keeper unduly bothered really in the first 55 minutes. But once Plymouth kind of stopped playing Sligo's game, then they flicked the switch, 2 goals in 2 minutes just before the hour mark, and it was game over. And they got four scores from 4 different places as well. Avril Brearley wrapped it up at the end. Kate Mooney with her last touch of her, she lobbed the keeper from the edge of the box. And it was just a really, really good game to watch for the last half hour. But the first 60 minutes, probably forget about it. But it was just a depressing day overall.
Did you get to see any of the Shells game yourself?
I saw the first goal in real time, and then I had to leave to go to the game and kind of watch bits of it back. I'm very impressed with Jamie Thompson. Very impressed with Shamrock Rovers in general. Shells have not been as badly affected. Neither have Plymouth, to be fair, with the players who've gone to Shamrock Rovers, as most of us would have thought they would be. I think it's going to be a really interesting challenge for the next couple of weeks to see how teams fare out in the opening round of games. But it's a bit more of a sprint this year, 20 games versus 27 last year. And I think there's going to be 3 or 4 teams right there battling to the death. I think we'll see Wexford and those 3 sides, Plymouth, Shamrock Rovers and Shelburne. And you talked about the rivalry on that game on Saturday. I think we're going to see that when those 4 teams meet each other this season, I think they're going to be absolute humdingers.
Oh, I agree with you. And I think from a Saturday viewpoint, I just think from the first whistle, it was just as if you could see Abby Larkin. There was a couple of hefty challenges put in on Abby throughout the game. You could see that the Shells players were well up for, like, even when I looked at the players coming out throughout the tunnel, even going for the warm-up, you could see some players on some of the sides were a bit nervous. They knew it was a big game, and you could see some of the others, like your Jessie Stapleton. She's only 18. Cool as a cucumber throughout the entire thing, saying hello to people, even walking out. And for her, technically it's a 3rd goal of the season. She's still claiming until anybody says anything else. She's claiming that goal until the FAI change it, because the FAI have it down as her, so she's claiming that goal in both. So
I'd be claiming it too. It definitely came off her.
But even her goal, though, it was a lovely header. You know, she got herself a little half a yard of space, and it was a brilliant header. I think Amanda Budden was put under so much pressure. She must have got everything thrown at her in terms of there was even fans calling, or should I say, it's Emma Budden, according to one of our TDs who had some of the Women's National League players were in the Dáil the other day. For me, silly as I don't like that. You can't put that on social media if you're a TD calling a player by the wrong name. I think Chris Andrews, especially being at Women's National League games previously, and I know he's from the Ringsend area, so would be a fan of the likes of Abby Larkin and stuff like that. You just can't have that. I think that's the sort of things that, you know, we're up against when it comes to so-called professional leagues, small little things like that. But I really, really, really enjoyed the game Saturday, and it was the first time in a long time where I probably said, wow, I walked away. It's one of the best games I've watched in a long, long time. I think TG Carr got full value for their money, and it was just an enthralling game. But like just as I said before we go on to the fixtures about the Cork game being off at the weekend, Wexford didn't play last weekend. So that means Wexford haven't played since the second week of the season. They're off this weekend again now. They go into the Shamrock Rovers game next Wednesday with a really, really long break now. It's 2.5 weeks between games. That's going to be very, very interesting. I also had a chat with Savannah McCarthy on Saturday. Savannah was telling me that she's very, very close to being back in the Shamrock Rovers side. She said that potentially after the Wexford game, she could potentially be in and around the bench. So that's another top class player. The international break is coming as well, don't forget. So that's going to give a bit of a break in play where give Savannah the opportunity to get a bit more fitness, and that'll be another one that'll come into Rovers and could do really well for them this year.
Yeah, interesting to see how that pans out over the next couple of days. I actually was looking for that tweet that you mentioned, but it's actually
it was on Instagram post.
Instagram, yeah. But funny enough, that particular TD follows us on Twitter. I didn't realise that. Anyway, let's take a look at the fixture or the results of the weekend. Galway United 0, Bows 1 in AMDC Park last Saturday afternoon. Shell Shamrock Rovers a 1-1 draw. We've talked about that this evening already. LOIW Cork City 3-0 to the Dublin side, while Athlone had a big win in the Markets Field, and Peamount were victors comfortably in the end against Sligo Rovers. The table looks something along the lines of this. Peamount, top of the league on 9 points after 3 games. The only side, the 3 games won so far. Wexford, of course, still do have a 100% record. Only 2 games played there. Shells and Shamrock Rovers, after their draw, both on 7 points. That's how I think the top 4 are going to stay. I think Bows might have a bit of a say on that, but whether they can break into that or not remains to be seen. They'll probably now offer me up some nice humble pie over the next couple of weeks. I'm well used to tasting that on this show. Athlone, maybe a little bit back from last year. They have a game in hand on the leaders as well, so they'll probably have a case to answer on that front as well. LOIW, Galway United, Sligo Rovers, Cork and Treaty, all still with no points on the board after 3 games. Of course, Sligo and Treaty face each other this weekend, so one of them will at least change that, if not both. Take a look at the clean sheets so far. Courtney Maguire and Niamh Burke with 2 each. Rachel Kelly, Amanda Budden, Abigail Ronayne and Maeve Williams and Ciara Glacken making up the one clean sheet club so far in the league. Very, very early days so far, but we did see last year that the players at the top of this particular chart tended to kind of stay more or less there as the season progresses.
Question for you on that this year. Last year we seen Amanda Budden run away with it.
Okay.
What do you think this year? Because I can't see 20 games. I can't see any team probably keeping more than 10, 11 clean sheets max.
Well, they've won it with less. They've won it with that number in the 27-game season, so it's going to be an interesting year.
Or even less than that.
I think the top 4 teams, or top 5, even 6 teams, Bows, Athlone maybe in there as well. I think they all have the potential to score goals against each other, and that will probably reduce the clean sheets. I reckon if anyone gets to double figures, they'll probably get the Golden Gloves award at the end of the season. Is Amanda Budden's defence in front of her solid enough? I think it is, maybe at centre back. I think there are weaknesses there. I saw the first day against
fullbacks. I think the fullbacks are a bit of a problem for Shamrock Rovers in the minute.
Well, conceding against Sligo, no disrespect to Sligo, but conceding against Sligo, albeit from a deflected free kick, it's they coughed up chances, and if teams are getting chances, they will score goals. And it'll be interesting to see how that pans out. Talking about goal scoring, this is the goal scoring list at the moment. Jessie Stapleton top of the list. She's up there with Madison Gibson, Jamie Thompson, all three of those with 3 players. Of course, Maddie Gibson has done it in 2 games versus the other 2 players. Anya Gorman, Megan Smith-Lynch, Becky Watkins, Kate Mooney, Kayla Hamrick, apologies if I butchered your pronunciation, and Chloe Singleton, all with 2 strikes so far this season. But I think particularly for the Athlone girls, okay, they did have a big scoring game down in Treaty at the weekend, but 2 of them on the list with just 2 games is fairly impressive.
Yeah, I expect, so as you say, I expect them to score a lot of goals against the top teams this year, and I think that's going to happen across the board. So we will see a tighter goal and boot race this year, but I suspect we may see a couple of different names that we probably haven't seen in previous seasons appear on it this year. And I think, like, you look at Carla McManus from Peamount, big season expected of Carla. I know Kate Mooney got a bit of a knock in the Universities game yesterday, so if she's not too bad, you would expect her to score quite a few for Peamount as well. And I think from other clubs like the Shells girls, I as much as I love Jessie, I think she's a great human being and a great person. I can't see her staying up there. She's with the defence, so she'll just be happy to sit there at the moment. And I think it'll be one that'll be tightly contested. I don't see it where we're going to see the Golden Boot winner coming from scoring buckets against the smaller teams necessarily this year. I think we
say that, but we have seen that in recent years where the girls at the top of the goal scoring charts have scored hat-tricks or 4 even against some of the smaller sides.
Yeah, but back in the day, say if Athlone beat back a year ago or 2 years, if Athlone beat Treaty 8-0, you probably expect Emily Corbett to got 5 or 6 of them. Whereas now you're seeing a lot more actual players chipping in. That's why I'm saying, yes, unfortunately we might still see some of them scoring, but I think we'll see more individuals popping up with goals rather than just one person scoring the handful for them all the time.
Let's look at the fixture list for the weekend. Of course, one game already fell foul of, I'm going to say the weather, but the Munster FA have asked for the game to be moved and it's been pushed back to May. Cork versus Wexford, that now 27th of May, the game that was due to be played on that date has been pulled forward a couple of days. I think they play on the 17th. So only 4 games go to the referee's whistle this Saturday afternoon, and they're kind of a staggered start through the afternoon. 2 o'clock, Shells and Galway in Tolka Park. 1 hour later, just down the road in Dalymount, Peamount are the visitors to Bohemians, and I think that will be an absolute cracker of a game. There's a couple of girls who will know each other very, very well there as well. LOIW host Athlone Town at 4 p.m. in Belfield, while Sligo Rovers obviously do not play Sligo Rovers on the showgrounds. They play Treaty night. That's on me. That game is also not at 7:45. I got distracted by yourself and Billy as we were preparing for the show. That's a 5 o'clock kickoff in the showgrounds. And Treaty United, as I mentioned earlier, are the visitors to the showgrounds on Saturday evening. Both sides pointless on the league table so far, so they'll be looking to get their particular seasons up and running this week. In terms of that, the right fixture should be at the bottom of the screen now. Your thoughts on maybe where you're likely to be? Will it be Tolka? Will it be Bowes? You won't get to a game at all.
No, I won't. Unfortunately, the day job is calling this weekend. I will be watching, probably will watch, I'd say, the Dalymount game, but the Bowes and Peamount game. I wouldn't mind my little sisters. My little sisters already making little plans with their friends to go to the Shells game, and I'm sort of like, you know, I'm like, yeah, I'm actually jealous because I would prefer to be at a league game, but I'll watch that, and then I'll probably watch the Treaty and the Sligo and Treaty game on Saturday. I'll flick between the others just to see what's going on. But I think that the Bowes game is probably the best game of the weekend. I'd expect home wins from Shells. Athlone probably to win that one. Then in the other game, you probably suspect that Sligo should beat Treaty, and then the Bowes one, if Peamount score early, they could score a couple against them, but I think it could be a tight game where it could be just a goal in it.
Last year we saw Sligo struggle to beat Treaty. They seem to do better against the bigger teams, just lift that game for them, and then struggle to break Treaty down at times. So that will be an interesting game from a personal point of view. I'd be quite interested to see that game. I think, to be honest, it's a big weekend for Bowes and it's a big weekend for DLR. Home games against teams that are just that bit ahead of them, maybe in the ability stage, and it's a chance for them to put their hand up and say, I suppose, slap mine back a little bit and go, no, we are here to be in the top 4. If they don't win those games, I think they will be outside the top 4 this year, or at least threaten to be outside the top 4 this year. So I think it's big weekends for those 2 clubs in particular. Athlone and Peamount will win as favourites, but marginally. And as you said, I expect Shells to beat Galway United reasonably comfortably. And again, humble pie tastes gorgeous. I really hope I get some for next week because I do love a surprise in this league, and we've had plenty of them over the last couple of years. Aaron, I suppose I'm also unfortunately on the missing list this week. I have family commitments. I won't be at a game live, but I will be catching up with them later in the day. I suppose that's really it. Thanks so much to Billy Clery.
Just a heads up though for listeners, we haven't made arrangements for next week yet, just because there is a round the league games Wednesday. So keep an eye on Final Whistle social media to see when we'll be out. We may either be out before the games or after next week's games.
We may even do 2 shows next week. Who knows? Things have not been decided yet, but we will keep you up to date, and we'll be back to chat to you at some stage next week. It definitely won't be Wednesday, more than likely Tuesday or Thursday around the fixtures next week. But to everyone for joining us, for listening, to Billy, obviously manager of the successful Intervarsity champions, the University of Galway, thank you so much for making yourself available to chat to us. Huge insight. We will have him on again because, as we said, his experience in the league, he just knows, and he's not afraid to call BS either, which is important within the league. We can't all be yes men and just say everything's great when we all kind of know it's not bad, but it could be a lot better across the entire league. Let us know where you're going to be on socials over the next couple of days, and we'd love to keep in touch with you and chat to you. We love hearing from you as the weeks go by, and we'll be back next week with another show. Talk to you then.